My name is Jamin Goecker. I'm an associate real estate broker in the state of Alaska, and my mission is to help you to build an intentional and significant legacy for yourself and your family. And today I'm answering a question of, would I move back to Alaska if I had it to do all over again? So this is kind of an interesting question because it gives me the opportunity to kind of share my story a little bit, which is something that I really haven't done on this channel before. So let's go ahead and talk about that. So when I got here in 2017, I did not plan on actually moving here. Okay, I just graduated from Texas A&M, got my bachelor's degree in international affairs and an emphasis on diplomacy and negotiations. And I was planning on going to and really kind of working my way up the U.S. foreign policy ladder and becoming the new big hotshot in U.S. foreign policy. I came here during the summertime though, and a family member of mine had some medical problems, and I decided, hey, I kind of want to be a little bit closer to home for a bit. You know, I have it on good authority. The world's probably not going to solve all its problems overnight. So luckily I'm going to be able to live in Alaska for a little bit and then get back into it later if that's something that I want to do. Now, keep in mind, at this time, I had really nothing to my name. I had 2 checked bags and a carry-on. That's when I say all the time, you know, if it's possible, condense all your stuff down to 2 checked bags and a carry-on. Well, it's because I actually did do that. I came up here with my older brother. He was moving up here. He planned on actually moving up here. I just came out of grad school. I was planning on doing something else, and so I, condensed everything down because I was only planning on being in Alaska for a little bit. So when I decided I was actually going to stay, it was around like that September, October time frame, and I was like, hey, I've got to find work now. This can't be too hard, you know. I'm a guy with 2 graduate degrees. I've got all this work experience, letters of recommendation for some pretty high-powered people. I should be able to knock down a great job pretty quickly, right? Not the case. You know, back in the job market of 2017, around the fall and winter time frame, it was not a great time to be looking for work. So instead of working on U.S. foreign policy and talking about all the big scary stuff that, I'd been trained to do, or educated to do, I should say, I found myself being a substitute teacher instead, which, good experience, good time, I think, honestly, my ego was probably a little big at the time, and unjustifiably, with having really had nothing but education up to that point. So it was actually a really good thing to have your ego kind of cut down to size with going from thinking you're going to be this high-powered diplomat down to struggling for your life to keep a classroom of second graders in line as they're waiting on the bathroom. So that was a good experience, I think, overall. It was kind of a dark time, though, I'm not going to lie, because I had all these aspirations of what it was that I was going to do, and, I found myself living on an air mattress in my brother's basement. Okay, so it was not really a great time, and it really started kind of messing with me, like how I could not find a job, and I was out there all the time. I was doing all the stuff that I recommend you guys do all the time, and really wasn't getting a whole lot of traction. I was writing magazine articles and newspaper articles and doing everything I possibly could to make ends meet, and still nothing was really working. And really what changed is I had a conversation with a real estate agent. Now, this conversation with the real estate agent really was a game changer, because in this conversation, she really did emphasize, hey, if you do all the stuff that you need to do, this is the kind of income that you can have, and this is the kind of life that you can be living. And, when you have next to nothing, when I say I was broke and I had nothing, I really mean I was broke and had nothing. I had a phone, and it was so cracked and so jacked up that I had exposed circuitry right there in the phone. So I kind of cringed every time I had to hold the phone up to my ear, just because there was a lot of exposed circuitry right there. And I was always afraid I was going to get electrocuted. And I had the data plan that had so little data, I could not afford to even update any of the apps on my phone. That's where I was. And she said, this is what you can do. And obviously it's not going to be easy. You can work with the team, you can do all this stuff, and that's going to be all fine and good, but let's call a spade a spade. It's going to be really tough, and the 75-80% of real estate agents that get into this are gone within the first 2 years. The washout rate is very high. At this point, though, I was I'm really just looking for a job where I don't have to prove my value to anybody. I know what my value is. I know what my strengths are. I know what my weaknesses are too, and I can make this work. So I jumped in there full board. I went and got a job serving tables, which again, I think that was a great experience for me because it really forced me again to kind of bring that ego down a little bit. By the way, I was the absolute best server in the world, I gotta say. Like, I absolutely knocked it out of the park. But I spent like the next 6 months or so really getting my real estate license, getting all that stuff figured out. As soon as I got myself into a brokerage and started working, I was like, yes, this is the thing. Like, I'm finally doing it, and I'm gonna start grinding. I'm gonna make this work. And the real estate brokerage that I jumped on board with initially went belly up, literally within 2 weeks of me having got in. I was like, oh man, I can't get any momentum. And it takes me like another 2 or 3 months to get transferred over. And by that time that transfer happened, the summer months in Alaska, where a lot of the deals are being had, was gone. And yeah, that that wasn't very easy for me, because at that point I had 3 jobs I was doing all at the same time, and I was just praying I could get to the point where I could just have 2 or maybe even 1 that I was doing, because I was working as a part-time teacher now, where I had my own class during the morning, and the afternoon all the way to about 5 o'clock I was working real estate, and then about 5 to about 10 or 11 o'clock at night I was serving tables and doing all that stuff with the restaurant. And usually my day would start with me being like boots on the ground in the classroom preparing lessons at about 7 a.m. So being in the class at 7 a.m. and then about 11 o'clock at night. And I did that for about 6 to 8 months until eventually had a couple deals come in, and I was able to just relax a little bit and at least cut back on one of those jobs. And eventually I was able to get to the point where it's just real estate. And yeah, so I mean, that was definitely very tough. I'll also say it was still awesome having family around. I was able to see my nieces and nephews, and I was able to be around and kind of see them, all growing. And I was able to be close to family, during sicknesses. And so that was a great time of my life as well. So I say all of that not to sound like it was absolutely terrible, because it was definitely hard work. And luckily I was able to get to the point where we went from doing a couple deals a year to now top performing real estate agent really for the entire state. Last time I looked at the rankings, once you kind of break out all the agents on the teams, I'm right at about like the top 5% overall for agents for the entire state. For the company, I actually found out last month, for the entire region, including Alaska and the Northwest, I'm actually the number 4 individual for the entire region, at least for closed units over in April, which that stat makes me laugh for a couple reasons, but we'll save that for another time. But the big question is, would I do it again? And the answer is I absolutely would. And the reason for me is more personal. I was able to actually be here when my nieces and nephews were born. I was able to actually see some of them take their first steps. I've actually been here to spend time with my brothers during the summertime when, they really love fishing and all that. I'm personally more into the hiking and that side of things. It's not really their cup of tea, so they kind of humor me every now and then, and I go fishing with them, so it balances out. But I've been able to have more time with family, and that's really important to me, because I do come from a large family. I've got 9 siblings. And for all of us to be living, within about 20 miles of each other, 30 miles of each other, is a very special time, I think, in all of our lives. And so I really wouldn't want to give that, really want to trade that for anything. And that, it's also being closer to family who's sick, and that's really important to me as well. So would I do it all over again? Yes, I definitely would. That being said, though, I also do not have any delusions of me being here forever, just because I do know myself, and I know at heart I'm kind of a restless spirit, and I'm probably not going to be in Alaska forever, which that's kind of the MO of just Alaskans in general. It's a very transitory state. You constantly have people coming and going, and so that's that just kind of comes with the state. But, I would expect that, I'm probably going to eventually be leaving. I don't know exactly when, but, I do believe I'll probably leave at some point. But, Alaska is just always going to have kind of a piece of me, I think, because this is where a big part of my family is. Or not a big part, this is where my family is. And come from a big family, so I expect that, I'm always going to have a great reason to be coming back here and to be spending as much time up here as possible. So that's kind of a long-winded answer. So yes, I would do it again. If I'm put in the exact same position where I was then, I would do the exact same thing again. Put me in the position where I'm at now, and I had to make the same decision, that gets a little bit more complicated. Because, I like I said, I know myself, and, I just don't know. Kind of a restless spirit. But anyway, that's my answer there. Thanks for listening to my long-winded answers. If you have any questions about what moving to Alaska is like, feel free to reach out to me. Be more than happy to talk more about my story and, see what the takeaways are for you. And, thanks for listening. See you next time.